What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out. El Clasico, Spanish Super Cup Final Edition. 4-1 it goes to Real Madrid. Could have been 6. Barcelona maybe could have had 2 or 3. The 3-goal difference in the end, probably pretty fair. It's another embarrassing result for Barcelona in a season that is not going well. And it's not like Barcelona played all that poorly. And they still were not close to winning this game, which is the big concern here. And a reminder of just how far apart these two clubs are at this moment in time. You go look at those first 2 goals. What in the world Barcelona were doing defensively, I have no idea. You're trying to play a high line while Real Madrid's players are on their own side of the field. And oh, by the way, your back 4 can't run with Rodrigo and Vinicius. And so Vinicius has a field day. The front 3 of Rodrigo, Vinicius, Jude Bellingham, really, really good. Barcelona have given up more goals in the first half of the La Liga season than they did all of last season, which is the big thing to point to in terms of what has gone wrong so far. Lewandowski has struggled at times. They haven't been great offensively, injuries, etc. But they won La Liga last season because they didn't give up goals. And now they are leaking them with essentially the same defense. So the game kind of speaks for itself in terms of Real Madrid absolutely humiliated them. And this was a particularly important game for Barcelona when you look at the context of their season and where things go from here. This was one game, 90 minutes to win a trophy, to win a Clasico, and to maybe feel much better about yourself and build some confidence heading into the second half of the season. All 3 of those things could have happened in 90 minutes. Now you have to deal with the ramifications of getting embarrassed. Your great shot at winning a trophy is gone. And now you've lost to Real Madrid twice and you just don't look anywhere close to them. So you look forward and okay, maybe they win the Copa del Rey. That's a trophy you can always win if you're Barcelona. But outside of that, you're looking at the Champions League and La Liga. And it is more likely they fail to qualify for next season's Champions League than it is they win either of those competitions. They are in a battle for top 4 right now. And that athletic team is scoring goals. Haven't been as great defensively as they typically have, but Griezmann and Morata are playing really, really well. They're just trying, at this point, you've got to make sure that this, you're essentially doing damage control, and you just got to make sure this doesn't get into complete and total humiliation and disaster by not coming away with the trophy, not beating Real Madrid once, and then on top of it all, not qualifying for Champions League. If you get the trophy, you can kind of salvage the season as long as you qualify for Champions League, but this was the opportunity to do that and to be able to go into the rest of the season and say, okay, even if we continue to not play all that well, as long as we get into Champions League, we've got the trophy. We beat Real Madrid to get it. At least there's something to hold on to, right? Chelsea, Arsenal, and the Premier League have kind of been good at this. That even when things aren't great, they're still right there in the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup. They find a way to make themselves relevant even when league play is not going particularly well. Barcelona may still be able to do that, but this was the great opportunity to kind of stop the bleeding, to change the trajectory of the season, to feel much better about where you're at, and instead, it's just spiraling even more out of control to the point where you're just trying to make sure this doesn't snowball even further and you get into not being in the Champions League in addition to not winning a trophy. The other thing I want to throw out there, considering Barcelona's financial situation, it's not all that shocking this is where they are. but they never decided to embrace the realities of that financial situation and go, you know what? We are going to just rebuild. We are not going to spend all this money. We're going to get the finances at least a little bit more in order. We're going to go with the academy. We're going to just take a step back. Because then there's an understanding that you can't expect that much from this team, that Xavi needs time, that you're okay taking some lumps in order to get things organized again. Instead, they're doing everything they can in their power to go acquire whoever they can based on their limited budget. So now you have this situation, but Robert Lewandowski and Ilkay Gundogan, for example, are in your team. They're not used to this. Gundogan has talked about how, I think it was after the first Clasico, how he was really upset with the way people responded to it and didn't feel like they cared enough and were upset enough. Because he's not here to go finish fourth in La Liga. But this is the situation Barcelona are in. And I know they won the league last season because they played much better defense and they probably overachieved a little bit. And even then, I kept making this point that nobody really bought into them as Champions League contenders because they still haven't done it in Europe. They're finally into the round of 16 this time. But if that game on Sunday was any indication, Napoli are going to be all over them. Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia are going to have a field day. So by not choosing to embrace the situation and try and make the best of it, but by continuing to kind of dig themselves and cover over the cracks and not actually do what needs to be done, now you're in the same spot. And it's just that much more embarrassing because you have these Champions League winners, these all-time greats in your team too, instead of just going the complete opposite direction, saying, you know what, it's time to get reorganized and rebuild. Now, for very different reasons, but the example I point to is Chelsea. In that season under Frank Lampard, they had no choice because they had a transfer ban. But getting fourth place felt like this massive success because of the way they used the academy players, the way they kind of overachieved, right? The narrative feels very different when you lower the expectations. Instead, Barcelona have chosen to continue to raise them, and at this point, they are not close to meeting them, so here we are. Second thing I want to mention real quickly, I feel obligated to do this every once in a while, and after what Kevin De Bruyne did on Saturday, it's the perfect time now that he's back in the fold for Manchester City. This man has one top 3 Ballon d'Or finish. I will never understand. Part of it's probably because Messi and Ronaldo were still kind of in the back end of their primes when he really got going. Part of it is some of his best seasons have been the ones where City didn't win the Champions League. Part of it is the injuries. And of course, part of it is that he plays for Manchester City. However, I feel like Kevin De Bruyne gets punished both for City being too good and City being not good enough. And here's what I mean by that. When he has, a 10, 15 goal assist, 10, 15 goal, 15 assist season or something like that, and City win the Premier League, they're supposed to look at all this talent around him. They would still be the best team in the world even if he's not there, which is probably true. And then on the other side, some of his best seasons, as I mentioned, have come when City did not win. And so all of a sudden, from a Ballon d'Or voting perspective, he doesn't have a league title. Belgium haven't won a major tournament. And so he doesn't get the votes there either. And so it's not necessarily anybody's fault. And the injuries are part of this. But valuable and best are two very different things. Is he one of the three most valuable players in the world? No. And at the same time, he is not replaceable. City have alternative ways to still be excellent when he's not on the field. maybe they go and win that game against Newcastle anyway. But he came on the field for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and was the central figure in everything. Scored the first goal, assisted on the second with a pass that not many players can make. And now it feels like City are, as is usually the case, going to go on this inevitable run, reel off 10, 15 wins in a row, catch everybody and go and win the Premier League again. Does it feel that way if Kevin De Bruyne is not there? I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe the answer is yes. All I know is that there is not another player in the world like that guy. And I would argue maybe the only other person you can say that about is Messi. Nobody outside of Ronaldo and Messi in this group, maybe Lewandowski, maybe, and maybe Harry Kane. But I will still stand on my belief that nobody outside of Ronaldo and Messi in this generation has been this good for this long. He is absolutely brilliant. You saw it again this weekend. Every once in a while, I just have to go remind everybody of this because to me, he is still wildly underappreciated. It's not enough to just say, oh, he's a great player. He is, to me, he would be the best player in the world if he wasn't in the same generation as two of the best 3-4 of all time. Don't need to get into that argument. And we just don't talk about him that way. So I feel obligated to bring it up every once in a while. Kevin De Bruyne, the hero, Manchester City beat Newcastle to keep their push for another Premier League title going. Final thing, real quickly, big news, NWSL draft over the weekend, but really the story was the trades that happened leading up to it. Washington Spirit trade Sam Staub and Ashley Sanchez in 2 different deals to acquire all these first-round picks. Got your new coach coming in. It appears the plan is to just kind of hit the reset button. And considering this team has failed to make the playoffs 2 seasons in a row, that's probably justified. This team that is, littered with U.S. women's national team players. Some kind of shakeup, I'll buy that might be needed. Going the route of investing in the draft, though, is the part of this I don't understand. This league, more than any other, all you have to do is get yourself into the playoffs. This Washington Spirit team proved it. Gotham proved it this season. You just have to give yourself a chance. You will not convince me the best way to do that is by reloading on a bunch of rookies. You are hoping become the kind of player Sam Staub and Ashley Sanchez already are. Your floor decreases significantly because you just gave up 2 really good players without getting a proven commodity in return. And I'm not convinced your ceiling actually increases all that much, because how much better can you get than Ashley Sanchez and Sam Staub? Now, if you get 4 U.S. women's national team quality players out of this trade, these 2 trades, then okay, fine. But it's not like every team ends up with that when you trade. Even if you get 1 or 2, you're just hoping to replace what you gave away. Now, the big caveat here is this doesn't seem to make sense on the surface unless there's another major move coming. That some of this was getting those picks to fill the spots vacated by Staub and Sanchez to then open up the money, the financials, to go get a big name. We'll revisit this conversation if that is part of this, because then you're trading these players for these picks plus whatever this name is, whatever this big star player, this major move is. But until that happens, this is just a head scratcher. Trinity Rodman posted, that's another aspect of this that clearly she is disappointed and frustrated because she and Ashley Sanchez are very, very close. I do need to reserve judgment a little bit to see how this goes, but more than any other league, your goal is to just get to the playoffs. It doesn't matter how it looks, doesn't really even matter what seed you are. I don't see how this helps Washington do that. Now, if you had made a player for player trade and swapped Ashley Sanchez for Dabinia or someone, for example, we're having a different conversation. But instead, Washington goes the draft pick routes. We're going to have to see if there are more moves coming as part of this. But Ashley Sanchez, now a member of the North Carolina Courage. Sam Staub, a member of the Chicago Red Stars. That is all for the weekend roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time.